Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Mind Matters, episode 2. And this one is entitled Makeovers and Media. Today, we are doing it a little different from the first session, so this will not be live. However, next week, we will be trying episode 3 with a live Zoom format once again, and that will be pushed out at the beginning of next week and will also be shared via Twitter as well as by invite through email, which I'll be giving that contact info at the end. So for those of you that are joining us for the second time, welcome back. For those that it's your first time, the purpose of Mind Matters is to take a look at what is happening in our immediate community, where we have community members that are spread all over the world, that are enduring conditions that they may have never experienced before in their entire life, and to ultimately come together and to have a forum in which to be able to get some ideas. And today's episode is largely based on the feedback that I'm getting from students and from families, both in Cape Town as well as abroad. So this is also very much shaped by you, and know that I'm very appreciative to everyone who has been able to connect with me or has reached out to let me know what is going on, what is working well, and where you feel that there may be some need for some additional support. Before I share my screen and get started on today's episode, a reminder of where we are here in Cape Town. So we are on day 35 of the government mandated lockdown. And when episode 1 was released, people were very enthusiastic. They were scared, they were anxious, they were feeling a lot of different things. But I think it's fair to say that the energy has certainly shifted to there are some things that are working well, and there are other things that maybe some momentum and some steam is not quite as strong as it was at the beginning. Facing these types of restrictions, it's a challenge. It challenges us in many ways, and the honeymoon period, so to speak, of being able to work from home, being able to sleep in, maybe being able to do some things where it felt a little bit like a holiday, that's gone. So I'm going to share my screen and we are going to get started. All right. Okay. So again, welcome to Mind Matters, Maintaining Mental Well-Being in Unusual Times, episode 2. And this one is called Makeovers and Media. Gives you a little taste of maybe what we'll be addressing today. I'd like to go back to 2 slides really quickly. And this we talked about in episode 1. And the fact is, this pandemic really has challenged our thinking and has challenged the way in which we interact with each other, and the way in which we are able to navigate in this world. Our new normal is not a matter of either or. So it's not either I am at school or I'm at home. It's now both. It's not I'm either working or I am on a break or rest time. Those are now much more blurred. And in terms of where many people might feel that they're at day 35, um, I think that people are doing exceptionally well in terms of being autonomous as well as being collaborative. Sometimes in the face of adversity, we are able to see the best in people and people coming together and being able to support one another. So that I think is something that is working quite well. Number three, having to navigate continuity and change. Um, I don't know how many of you were listening to some of the breakdown of level 4 lockdown that we moved to on the 1st yesterday, whether it was over radio, live stream, or television. Um, I found that to be an extremely difficult 2 hours. And the reactions that people were getting both uh, through the WhatsApp groups, through the media, on site to posts afterwards on things changing, and this wasn't what was announced 2 days before. Continuity, we must go on. We cannot hide in a corner and um, not live our lives and live our lives as our happy selves. But change can happen, but it's, and change is happening and will continue to happen. Experts foresee for anywhere between the next 6 to 8 months, we need to be comfortable with being in a state of having change happen, and with these lockdown levels for those in South Africa, and I know many of you that are in other countries and other locations abroad, there are restrictions in terms of movement, in terms of what you might be allowed to do. Then at another day, things need to change. And this change happens because of what's right below. It's the needs of others and the needs of self. We need to make sacrifices, and we need to really do some difficult things and have to forego some of our daily comforts in order to ensure that the needs of others, that the collective remains strong. People, particularly those of you that have multiple, and not only multiple, maybe siblings that are in a household with, over 3 or 4 people, but in fact, a trend that researchers are showing is that there is going to now be this growing trend as lockdown begins to ease of having a larger number of multi-generational households. And that is in response to being able to be together and be safe when the level and restrictions can change very rapidly. So in terms of how our thinking has been challenged, maybe you're feeling different from how you were 35 days ago. I know there's certainly some that I've been wondering about, and some that are a little easier to navigate and reconcile on certain days, and it's a challenge others. But this is where we really do need to lean on each other. All right. I'm going to also, this is a review, but I thought take some time on day 35. When we looked at Swimming in the Deep End by Jay Abrams, the three things in terms of managing yourself through change. One is about the structures and supports that you have in place. So how are those structures and supports? Have they changed and shifted from day one to where we are now at day 35? I'm going to spend a little bit of time revisiting quiet practice. I think this is something that people felt very excited about, and I know many people have shared with me some of the practices that they may have experimented with, whether it's meditation, yoga. Um, there may have been some that stick and some that maybe, and I'm bored. So I'm going to revisit this and share with you my secret to quiet practice that, at least for me, is the one that sticks. And I thought it would be good to also revisit cultivating your relationships. So how are your relationships doing? Uh, we're at day 35, some people having been in very close proximity to one another 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Some relationships may have thrived, some may be needing a little bit of TLC. And similarly, there are people whose relationships are, really being challenged by social distancing, by lockdown, by quarantine measures, depending on where you are. So I thought that this would be a good thing to revisit as well. All right. In terms of 35 days into a lockdown where your thinking and has been challenged, I'm using a framework that I learned from a UK psychologist, Dr. Mosley. And Dr. Mosley talks about wellness and really as a well. So what you're looking at is not, I tried to stick with the green palette, but it's a well. And when we are in this model of wells, talks about everybody has wells and you need to make sure that you have enough spice. So she's not talking about the Spice Girls. She's talking about, so spice, spiritual, physical, intellectual, creative, and emotional. Now, in these times, we've all had to take on some type of additional role as caregivers, taking care of one another, and even just having to live with this threshold of change in our daily lives. I think this metaphor makes a great deal of sense, that it's as though you're taking a bucket down from the well each time to get through the often rapidly changing challenges that happen daily. And I think as a community, as people, and some people maybe already very creatively driven. I'm seeing people that are posting pictures of baking. There's people that I never thought would make bread that are making homemade bread. So when looking at these models and getting feedback and talking to many of you, I think that there are some of these under this model that we're doing well, and others that we can do a little bit of work on. Now, in the absence of a live audience today, I'm going to be relying on a few memes and classic quotes from one of the greatest films of all time, Gone with the Wind. So at one point, the main character, Scarlett, is talking about how don't look back because eventually you can't do anything but look back. And when your wells are depleted, so from an emotional standpoint, if you are bottling things up, if you are continuing to give and give and give, and that bucket is continuously going down that well, Well, when that well is depleted, all you have left is looking back. And this is not ideal because it can lead to being in a state where you are much more susceptible to uh, to symptoms related to anxiety, to depression, to just an overall lack of motivation. And so if you find yourself looking back at this point at day 35 and thinking almost with nostalgia about the good old days, um, it's it's just not ideal. You are not setting yourself up to replenish these wells, so to speak, particularly at an emotional level. So we need to acknowledge, validate how we feel, share and reach out to people in your support system, because being trapped in this cycle of just looking back, it's not going to likely lead to positive outcomes. All right, switching gears slightly. Some of you, when I talked about quiet practice in episode 1, so things like meditation, guided breathing, and some people might have tried that. Do you have an alternative quiet practice that will bring calm to your body and your mind? And it doesn't matter if you are, if you have a lot of space, if you have a tiny space. I think sometimes the bigger the space, the more people that are there. And I know many of you are in homes where um, there may be 2 people, but that takes on a whole new reality when you are living under radically different conditions. To families of 5, that there may be logically a lot of space, and yet it's not big enough, and people want to and need to kind of escape a little bit. And so I'm going to share my alternative quiet practice. And before I share it, there's a few things to keep in mind about this. First of all, what are your feelings surrounding quiet time? So right now, we are in Cape Town, and many of you abroad are facing limitations in terms of being able to move around. And it's actually, for me, it's slightly eerie of how quiet it can be outside when one is used to to vehicles coming and going, and quiet time doesn't have to be a scary thing. It doesn't mean that you are uh, disconnecting from loved ones, uh, or that there's a problem. Rather, it's you're taking a designated amount of time, like a mini break, for yourself. And another thing, and this is especially important when you are um, living in a household with more than with other people, are you taking the time to share with others what you need to have your mini breaks? So for some people, it's just a matter of saying, do you know what? For the next 20 minutes, I need people to pretend like I'm not here. It might be letting someone know that when the door is closed, it's because I'm taking a mini break, I'm having my quiet practice. So don't be afraid to share with others. It's not about hurting anyone's feelings, it's about being clear on communicating what you need for your quiet time. And can you stick to it, which allows you to disconnect from screens? So I think parents all over the world are scratching their heads how, limiting screen time, and that, what pediatricians and researchers have said for years is now all of a sudden kind of put on hold as we deal with this new reality. So this alternative quiet practice, mine does involve media. However, it's set up in a way that I am disconnected from screens. All right, so you don't need to guess too long what it is. So my alternative quiet time is music. And this is something that I used to do in the car during drives, at times at work, at times here at night. Two things, and this image is chosen deliberately. So one are the earphones. And yes, I realize that many of you have buds that are much more discreet than the ones that you're seeing there. It is about you having your time and being able to truly disconnect and to be quiet. So it is not quiet practice if your music is blasted and it becomes everybody's dance party. It just doesn't work. The second reason why I chose this image is you'll notice that the screen on the phone is blank. And when I go into my alternative quiet practice, which is music, the phone goes on airplane mode and is put in my pocket. So how to remain disconnected from that? Airplane mode is something that I would recommend 100%. There are designated playlists, so it's not just to put my music on. It's playlists that I know exactly how long they are. And so when you are putting your playlist together, you know whether it is a 20-minute playlist, a 40-minute playlist. And this is because you do not want to put shuffle when you're using this as a quiet practice. And while, ballads are maybe preferable, not everybody feels calm, and particularly if you've tried guided breathing, meditation, mindfulness, you might have it might be some metal or some rock, or it might be some really really interesting underground European electro. It doesn't have to be what you would associate as like spa music or easy listening. But what is important is that it is something that makes you happy. And so that is my secret alternative to quiet time and quiet practice. And I encourage you to try it. In terms of relationships, as we shift, so we talked about cultivating relationships, how there's changes in the family dynamic, and are you taking time to connect daily with loved ones? I think that many people are doing a good job at connecting daily with a variety of people, with loved ones in their immediate physical vicinity as well as online. But I wanted to take this to look at and certain keywords. So cultivate, family dynamic, and time to connect. All right, so this takes me to a new one today. When we look at social media, is it social media or is it social media? So people who have an inclination to like to post a great deal of where they are and what they're doing, they may have run out of steam at this point. Because where are you? At home. What are you doing? You're in lockdown. There's not, uh, that needs to change. So that would be the so and the me. So social media is one way in which we are able to stay connected, and the emphasis is on the social aspect. So I'm going to share with you some things that you may already be doing, and um, there's some things that I myself learned from the first time from members of our community, and it's just been fantastic, and I've been really excited to share this with you. All right, so in terms of being social, it's not just about photos are there, but you can see how it's sort of hidden in the back. It's about share, tweet, like, um, chat is there. There's friend is there, but then it's also you may be connected to other people. So it's about being social. So if there's something you're finding on YouTube, share it, like it. If there is an article, there's so many um, amazing modalities that are now offering their articles completely free, or that there's no limits in how many times you can visit it. Like it, tweet it, share it through email with others. Take it away from photos of yourself and turn it into sharing and what you're liking, and keeping that socializing aspect alive through social media. This is one, and I'm going to give a big thank you to Junior and to Joshua, who gave me the lowdown on Netflix Party. Netflix Party is probably one of the greatest ways that, in the absence of being able to go to a movie theater, to sort of replicate that with social distancing. So you're watching Netflix in sync with friends. It's a free extension through Chrome. There's other ways that you're able to get it as well. And I'm going to show you. So this is what it would look like. And this is, I had someone else in this who strongly recommended that I watch this series, Love is Blind, and something that I wouldn't normally be into, and I found myself binge watching it. So this is from Love is Blind, and what it is people are watching it at the same time, and they're posting comments about it. And so this is one way that I think it's free. I think it's a brilliant alternative to not being able to go to the movies with friends or with others, and also to kind of take a pivot, so to speak, from your own daily Netflix, and doing something with others in a meaningful way, and being able to have that real-time social collaboration. All right, so some changes to media. I just talked about some of my tricks for quiet time, Netflix Party. But one thing to also consider, and this is, you know yourself best, we are in a state of information overload. And so rediscovering your favorites is psychologically soothing. Having that familiarity. And so while, yes, they're through streaming platforms, there is an abundance of new things that you can either view, listen to, audiobooks, articles, but there's so much information that maybe think about it. It might be rewatching one of your favorite episodes of a show that you enjoyed a few years ago. It could be something that I said sometimes that you can find some actual real lifelines in the children's section. So it might even be looking at, and especially if you're a parent, one of the children's shows that maybe your child is interested in that you don't mind the least. And I know there's a double negative, but there are things that you can, for music, yes, there's lots of great new music, but going to some of your favorites, it is soothing. And we need some of that soothing right now. All right. What I'm going to also suggest is nonfiction is your friend. Try giving documentaries a try. So if you aren't in the habit of doing this, again, there is so much nonfiction which it's conducive to learning and to learning more about the world, and also to provide an opportunity to maybe delve into something that you are really interested and passionate about that is not COVID related at all. And to that end, I strongly urge you to limit the news to certain set times. The news, that is where you can not only get information overload, but you can get cognitive fatigue so easily, because it is a challenge to find positive stories right now. There are a lot of scary things associated with these uncertain times. And so while we do need to know what is happening and we need accurate information, if you set sort of into your routine certain times, maybe twice a day, that you connect to the news, maybe once through print and once through whether it's streaming or TV, radio, but to really try to limit. And so in terms of nonfiction, we don't need to escape to a world of fantasy forever. And that is where I think things like documentaries and series, where you're able to really explore things and places that you can't at the moment, and it gives you a break from everything COVID related. And am I taking the time to connect daily with loved ones? So in episode 1, we talked about family, extended family, friends, pets. And hopefully you are still taking the time to connect daily with them, whether it's through something as quick as a WhatsApp or a text message, to finding time once a week to video conference with family members, whether you have a group where you are all gaming together at a certain time. It is important. And at day 35, there are make sure that people that you reached out to on days 1, 2, and 3, that they're still in your thoughts and in your actions on day 35 moving forward. All right, going back to Gone with the Wind, a very famous quote. So, "Sir, you are no gentleman, and you, miss, are no lady." So to that, I'm giving you a challenge. So this week's challenge, lockdown day 35, be a lady or a gentleman. Now, this also goes to Mosley's Wells model in terms of the physical. So we know that there are, it's going to be a little while before people who are used to going to hair salons, barbers, nail salons, that they're going to be able to go back to those places. I can appreciate some people being brave, and I'll get to the do-it-yourself makeover. But one thing that I will stress is, as we're at day 35, to stick to 2 non-negotiables in your daily grooming. And so whether that's when you get up, no matter what, you are going to wash your face and brush your teeth. For some people, it is wash your face, brush your teeth, and style hair. For some, it's the full gamut as normal. But that I would say that treat your weekdays. Okay. Treat your weekdays as though you are leaving your home, and it is important to maintain your daily grooming and good hygiene, not only from a health perspective, but when you look good, you do feel good. And when you're not feeling good, one of the first things to go often is taking care of yourself. I'm going to, in this lady and gentleman challenge, forget casual days, no more casual Fridays, because people are in their pajamas, people are wearing comfy clothes. Try formal Fridays. So even if you are not leaving your home or you are just taking a trip to get some groceries, make your Friday a time that you can go and I put to rediscover the rest of your wardrobe, probably pieces that maybe require ironing that are hanging in the back. Make Friday at the end of the week a time when you dress to impress, and even if there aren't many people around to appreciate that, it still helps you feel good. Consider or reconsider the do-it-yourself makeover. Some people have been really brave and have attempted to take on the trade of barber or hairstylist for the first time ever. Those of you that have done that after one YouTube tutorial, I applaud you on your bravery. But that just to be cognizant of the fact that there are things that we have to do from home, but that go in increments, as opposed to doing something very drastic. One family shared with me that they are really enjoying their new household rule of dressing for dinner. And that made me think of this whole lady and gentleman challenge of, where people did dress for dinner. And I think it's also a great thing that with a quick photo to then share and pass out, it's just things that people actually will smile about. I have one family that with teenagers, and the teenagers have been the ones that have enjoyed instituting afternoon tea. So more power to you. It's something that you can do, but it's essentially for being a lady or being a gentleman. It goes beyond dressing and manners and decorum. It's about remembering that times may be challenging, but it doesn't mean that we have to feel that we are being pushed down. And for those who did listen to the address last night, I'm not going to use the word. I have the word draconian in my head, of how these measures are not draconian, and it was repeated and repeated, and now I may have by extension given this to you, and hopefully it doesn't get stuck in your head for too long. But to think of some weekly challenges in just ways that we can reconnect with one another. So to conclude, there's a lot that's happening. There's a lot that's changing, and there's a lot that I've just pushed out to you today. And so to end with our character, Scarlett, what would Scarlett do? Well, she'd think about it tomorrow. you do not have to have the answers and the solutions to everything right away. And that's being kind to yourself and also living in this state of navigating change. Because after all, tomorrow is another day. And so that concludes Makeovers and Media, episode 2 of Mind Matters. Next week, we are going to return to the live forum where I'll be taking questions. And I really encourage those of you who do plan on attending, or if there's an issue in particular that's on your mind that you think matters, this is very much something that I'd love to hear about. So please reach out. So if you are a Twitter user, please reach out at swarden OCT. I'd love to know I'd love to get a shout out or two. If you have watched Mind Matters episode 2, so feel free to send any feedback, ideas, questions through Twitter. Or by email at swarden@aisct.org. And I'm more than happy to connect with you. Okay. So I think, yes, my screen is now off. And so as just a final parting word, know that like you, I am feeling sometimes the burn, sometimes the challenge of certain things associated with these lockdowns and limitations on our ability to go about our daily business. And again, all I can reiterate is to remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and do not hesitate to reach out if you are feeling that there's something that is troubling. And do not hesitate. By all means, help me, help our community, that reach out if you think someone is struggling, and that we are all in this together. And I do believe that this is an opportunity for us to really show that we are stronger together. So thank you for joining me on episode 2, and I will see you next week. Stay safe and have a wonderful weekend.